suffering is a reality. No human being is protected by it. Money doesn't fix it. Even having love, whatever, it's going to happen, right? And that's fine. What it showed me is that we are all well equipped to deal with it.
The best-selling author, award-winning podcast.
Transformative purpose.
If you're into martial arts or kung fu, then you probably have heard of Bruce Lee or Yip Man. My next guest, Nima King, used to train with Chu Shong Tin, and he was a third student of Yip Man. But what are some of the untold stories behind a Wing Chun master? My conversation with Nima blew me away. And as the saying goes, we can't run away from our past. Sometimes we need to face our past in order to move forward. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. Guys, welcome back to the new episode on Transformative Purpose. Super excited. I've got a Wing Chun master who is going to have a conversation with us today. Meet Nima King. Nima is the founder of Mindful Wing Chun here in Hong Kong. Also Hong Kong's biggest Wing Chun center, right?
Kung Fu school, yeah.
Kung Fu school, yeah?
Yeah.
Looking forward to this chat, Nima. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you
Looking
for having
forward
me.
to sharing.
Cheers, Aaron. Thank you.
How are you, mate?
Good. Very good. Very good. Thank you for having me on.
No worries. How's the family?
Family's great. Well, now they are. I was just telling you that the kids were going through some illnesses in this month, but yeah, very good. All happy, all healthy. So blessed. No complaints. Yeah.
Man, you got an incredible story to tell. I don't even know where to start. I've got so many questions for you. Let's just start from your childhood.
Sure.
You were born in Iran.
Yes.
You lived through the war.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So that was in the middle of the Iran and Iraq war. And it was just a few years after the big Islamic Revolution. So so there was a lot of fear in the air, because the military police were trying to really clamp down on anything that wasn't going their way. So I remember there was a lot of fear, even so I was there until I was at 9.5. But I remember I have clear memories, vivid memories of the fear I had with not the normal police, but the military police, young 15, 16-year-old kids with AKs, 6, 7 of them in the back of the vehicle, and all the adults saying, "Don't look at them, don't." So it was a lot of that, and of course,
what's the worst thing you saw?
People getting dragged away by the hair, like just randomly. Like people having meals, and then just people were coming, and women screaming, and then just men getting dragged away by the hair and probably never seen again. It was sort of like that,
Yeah.
And there was luckily we never got bombed around where I was. I'm from Shiraz, the city of Shiraz, but I remember sirens going off. So we'd be playing in the streets, and then the sirens will go off. So on TV, on radio, and just the mosques, they have these loudspeakers, so it would go off. And whenever the sirens go off, you just run back home. And I remember my parents used to get me to get me and my brother under the door frame. Apparently, that's the strongest structure of the building. If a bomb hits, maybe less chance of everything collapsing in on you. So, but they made it into a game. That wasn't that scary, to be honest. It was sort of more of a game. Siren, everyone runs back home and nothing happens. All right, and then you go. Yeah, sort of. It was like that. But the military police and the whole regime is what was just really scary because of what I saw. It was just what they said. What they said went, and then to see the adults that we look up to, our mentors, being so fearful of them as well. It's just like, okay, you just don't feel protected in any way,
Yeah. Have you overcome that fear?
I would say fear in general. I have changed my relationship with fear, but I wouldn't say I have overcome fear. Fear is always there in different kind of. Before we started, I was saying, the fear now. The new thing being a parent is when the kids get sick.
Yeah.
The fear of the unknown, of what's going to happen, and the helplessness and things like that. So it was similar in terms of the helplessness back then. But well, I would never. I can't go back to Iran anyway because they'd probably throw me in the military because every man has to do their service. But I wouldn't go back there anyway until there's a regime change, if there ever is. But I don't know how I would act in a scenario like that. I would still be scared because what can you do? They can just.
So what keeps you up at night these days, other than kids getting sick?
That's probably the only thing. There's really nothing else. Like, be it financial ups and downs, with the business. I mean, having gone through the protests in Hong Kong before that obviously affected the business because it was, the riots were happening just outside of here.
Yeah.
And then COVID, during COVID, all gyms were closed. I think all up about over a year and a half. We were just closed, so that was interesting, to have to go through that. But apart from that, just the kids, man. That's just losing the loss of loved ones, which I've gone through in my life in the past. So that's the biggest thing. Yeah, apart from that, it's pretty good. Other stuff, fear comes and goes, but I'm pretty cool with it. I've learned how to manage it.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't completely debilitate me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does one manage? You mentioned about the emotional fear, and you were living through a hall, and there was the military police that was going on, and as a child, I guess you had fun here and there, but there was this fear that lived, I guess, inside you, right? So at what point did you redefine your relationship with fear, and how did you do that?
Well, look, the biggest fear actually growing up was fear of my father. That it was domestic violence, because that was sort of external fear, but at home, there was a lot of. My dad was very, very extremely violent, very physically abusive, verbally abusive. Used to be the same way towards my mum as well, and so that was the biggest fear, and so because of that, I started to. In my youth, when we moved to Australia, I started to rebel. There was that, and we were in absolute poverty, when we moved there, because he was a university teacher, and the uni supported us. So during that time, it's like, how can you run away from Iran? How can you get out, right? Places like Australia, the States, Canada, these are the places or England, these were like seen as heaven, compared to where we were living. So that's one thing that I got to take. I got to be grateful to my father that because of his education, the uni gave him a student visa for Australia, for 4-year visa, to be able to go and write his thesis on philosophy and then come back, as a professor, and then work back for that university again. And then during that 4 years, he did his thesis. During that 4 years, he was obviously figuring out a way to stay there, and we sort of became refugees in Australia, and that's how we. Yeah. But during that time, because he was on that visa, we couldn't work. My mum couldn't work, and he couldn't work. So we were, and what they were providing us with was peanuts, So we literally were. You're from Oz, council cleanhouse, right? So everything, including me and my brother's mattresses, were other people's rubbish. We'd go during council cleanups. We'll go at night when there's no one around, and we'll just bring back from our TV to our couches to everything was just from council cleanup. So that's the kind of level of poverty we're in. So I was like, okay, so there's, I couldn't. First of all, it was hard for me to have friends because I was very. I was an introvert because of the fear, and I was so different coming from Iran. I couldn't speak English. That was, my life had changed, and I couldn't bring people back home because they'll see the sort of dumpster that we're living in.
Did you have a feeling that you were trying to fit in?
Absolutely, absolutely. I was trying. I was hoping to fit in, but everything from my shoes to my haircut to everything was just so different. And Australia is a multicultural country, and it is quite accepting, right? Like the school I went to was full of multiculturals, but internally, because I couldn't speak the language, because we were so poor, because I couldn't, it's like I had no way out. I couldn't. And my mum, the one thing that I did have was love from my mum, and I think that's what what she instilled in me, or what she made me feel from her. I put it down to that. That's why. And if we go further into where my life went down during the teenagehood, which is like street life and really serious street life, where I was many a time I was in a life or death situation. One of my friends in a fight that I was hospitalized in. One of my friends got stabbed one time in the lung, and then 3 months in a coma, and then it was gone. And this guy was 15. So it was.
How old were you?
I was just over 16 at the time, and I was knocked out for over 30 something hours. I just remember it was late at night in the city
Then you were a bouncer at King's Cross, right, when this happened?
No. This was before I was a bouncer. Yeah, I became a bouncer when I was 18, but this was before that. And it was just it was the people that I was with But we were in a club, and there was a people when we came out. The people I found out after the people that I was with, it was a retaliation against something that they had done. There was four of us, like 25 of them, and then there's just no talk. They just jumped on us, and I don't remember. I just remember my friend getting hit and me trying to do something, and then waking up in the car. They were touching my body, and they're like, "Have you been stabbed? Do you feel anything?" And I sort of didn't respond. Went out again. Woke up like something like 30 hours later in the hospital. The two front teeth missing. Because then I watched that. It's pretty horrendous. I watched that footage. The police showed me the footage after to see if I can identify anyone, which I couldn't. But they try to do the American History X thing on me, where I don't know if you've seen the movie, but the guy gets lucky I was knocked out, so they couldn't open my mouth properly, but they put the mouth open on the curb and they jump on the head. Yeah, so they tried to do that, but lucky I was knocked out. It was just my teeth went, and my face. Only my face was messed up. So lucky I didn't get stabbed. Anyway, so that was one of a few sort of occasions that was really scary. And
why did you get into it in the first place? You mentioned so when we touch on the childhood, you mentioned that your fear didn't come from the external environment, even though there was war and revolution happening. You said the fear came to feed the family. That was a bit abusive.
Yeah.
And then you moved to Australia, where you were having difficulty trying to fit in. Was joining a gang an outlet for you? Did you find your identity there?
Yeah. So hanging around on the streets and me, that was my way of. It ticked a few boxes. One of them being getting a sense of family, sense of belonging, because I didn't have much of a sense of belonging at home because of the way. I mean, even with my brother, which I'm very close with now, but before growing up, only until recently, only until we lost our sister, we weren't very close. We wouldn't talk, and talking about it now, we love each other, right? It's blood, and I have nothing against him. He's got nothing against me. We're living in the same room together, but we never talk. And there was this thing, and it was the dynamics that my dad had created. So I didn't have a sense of belonging apart from just my mum, and later when my sister was born with her. But it was just, there was no sense of togetherness, you know. And I had that with my cousins and stuff in Iran. But when I came, we have zero family in Sydney, zero. And the friends, it took me a while, me and my brother, because we were getting into a lot of fights at school as well, because we're getting picked on for having plastic shoes from reject shops. You know, so we would get picked on, so we have to.
Kids being silly.
Yeah, I mean, kids are being kids, right? But so it was a sense of belonging. Another thing was a sense of respect, and which is, of course, now, you know, I've matured and understand that's not the way to get respect. But it was that, okay, well, you can't pick on me because I'm
bigger than you. I'm stronger than you.
I'm stronger than you.
Yeah.
There was money as well involved, you know. So that way you could get money, which we didn't have. Which I wanted things. I wanted a nice, I don't know, set of coloring pencils. You know, just little things that I wanted to have food. I wanted to know what a Snickers bar, you know, tasted like, because everyone would have it and I never tasted it. So things like that. So it ticked many boxes, and it was my way of. Maybe the outlet for anger, you know, to shout at someone, to just to fight and all that kind of stuff. Because at that age, this is just before I was able to stand up to my dad, and that came in a few years after that.
So what happened between you and your father?
So it was just, I mean, because he was so abusive. I remember one time must have been like probably 15 at this stage. And I started Wing Chun when I was 14. I had a break in the middle because I just got deep into the street life type thing. But I remember one time at 15, he was very creative with what he would hit us with. One of his favorite was the electrical cord. That's what he would hit my mum with. So that's much worse than a belt, right? Because it just breaks the skin open. So I remember he started to hit me.
And at what age were you when he first started doing this to you?
As young as I can remember. I remember when we first got to Oz, I was 9. Many occasions he would. It was also the way he did psychologically. He would literally bring a tin gas can, and leave it there, and he would say, "No one's allowed to sleep here tonight." We were in the living room, as big as this, right? No one's allowed to sleep tonight. If you sleep, I'm going to burn the family. So I was like 9 years old, right? And I'm like, you know, I remember like, okay, don't sleep. Next morning I wake up, I was like, oh, we made it. Okay, time to go to school. And I go to school with that, you know. So yeah, but I remember when I was 15, one time he hit it, and I held the thing, and then I sort of piped up at him, and I could see fear in his eyes because I was bigger, stronger, and I had a lot of fights, and it was like the time that I was like stood up. By that time, my brother had already left home. My brother's a lovely human being. He's really hardworking. He took it out instead of like the street life fighting and stuff. He took out his, I don't know, channeled that energy into studying. For as long as I can remember, his face was in a book, and he got it. He's now he's got his law firm, very successful lawyer in Australia, and that's sort of what he did. So he left home and he lived in a granny flat of this old lady, and he was working at. So he was studying and he was working at McDonald's. This is at the age 16 or something. To fund his his rent and all that kind of stuff, and he sort of he came back later, but during this time, that's when my rebellion started against my father, and then from there we didn't talk to each other for a period of about 6 or 7 years until he well basically he the last thing he did and I was in Hong Kong. I remember getting a call from my brother. I remember it was so I right now I can't tell you exactly what year it was, but the way I find out is I Google when was what year was the movie Gangs of New York, no, American Gangster by Denzel Washington. What year was that released? Because I remember we were after training, we were going to go watch that movie. Brother called me up. He said, and he was just crying. Sit down. What? Well, sit down, you. And he started swearing at me. I'm like, what have I done? So I sit down. He goes, are you sitting? I said, yeah. He goes, he effing did it. He finally did it. I said, did what? Who? What? He said he took her. He took what? What are you talking about, man? What are you? And then his girlfriend at the time came on, and he said she was crying as well. And he said, your dad killed your sister. They just walk into and she was 13 years old at the time. And so they'd walked in, and usually my mum said whenever they came in, my brother and my mum would come home together. Um, she would be running. She would know they'd come in, she would be running. And this time they didn't. Where is she? And then went in the room and saw her. She was already purple on the floor. And my brother thought it's a thief or something. Went in the laundry and he saw my dad hanging. So he hung himself. And so this was, and it's for me, thinking about it now, I'm like, I, I still don't understand why he did that, because she was the only thing he loved, right? But I think the reason he did that is either two things. Either he didn't want her in this world without him, which doesn't make as much sense as a second thing, which is that was his last stab at my mum. Because my mum had just after all these years where me and my brother were telling her to do it, she just filed for divorce, and the hearing was like in a couple of weeks, and then he did this. So this he was a you know his old man was more violent than him apparently, from what I hear. I never met my grandfather, his father's father. So, and this is why now that I'm so passionate about being a father like you, and reading about your story, I can connect with you on that, because his father was during the last king of Persia, of Iran. He was one of the high up military people, so it was just a man that was just very violent, would just hit the kids for no reason. So my dad went through that, right? And he had three brothers. One of them died of overdose. One of them committed suicide. He committed suicide. He's the oldest one, which I think is a good man. He's much older. He sort of made his wife go crazy, and his sister, he had one sister, I don't know what happened to her. So you can see that's the impact of.
So he had some traumas in his life.
Absolutely. And then he gave that to us. He passed that. He expressed that to us. So now I feel like my job is so important. I've got to break that, because I have a son now and a daughter, but I've got to break that with my son. It has to end with me, So that has, being a father has become another drive to be able to do that, and then which has set me on a path of right now sitting here talking with someone like you, of expressing my vulnerability, of being open about it, not suppressing, which then turns into anger and frustration and depression and anxiety, etc. So that I feel like
that's what we've been told, right, or how we were taught in our generation. Just shit happens, act tough,
sweep it under the rug as men, man up.
Yeah, you gotta have your big ego, you gotta look tough, right? You gotta look good.
Yeah,
you gotta care about how people perceive you.
Yeah. And it's so far from that. And that is what the suppression, and that is what made me look. I don't regret. I never hurt anyone really bad and everything like that. So I don't regret anything. I don't regret my path, because I wouldn't be sitting here right now if it wasn't because of every little thing that happened, right? So I don't regret my path and my past.
But what I'm trying to say is that given what had happened to you, there are so many different paths that you could have chosen. You could have continued your game path, the triad path, and I think a lot of them are in sort of that situation.
Yeah.
That's basically the end of the line.
Yeah, or they go down the, they go down the drug route or alcohol route or I mean, even gaming, just to anything to run away, distract yourself from the present moment, from the feelings that you don't know what to do. And as kids, we don't know what to do, so we bottle it up, and that becomes the barriers get thicker and thicker and thicker, and they become harder and harder to penetrate. So for me, it got to a point where when the thing happened with my sister, and I was very lucky that before that I had found Wing Chun, and I had moved to Hong Kong, because Wing Chun, the type of Wing Chun that we do, the type of Kung Fu that we do, is very much about being in the present moment. It's that mind and body connection, right? So rather than just the external technical things of, hey, here's a pad, hit it, or here's someone attacking you, do this. We spend a lot of time in this, what you can call it like a standing meditation, where you're standing there and it's a holistic, infuse your body with your mind and try to relax and release and connect and focus. So you're literally in present moment. So that was very, very helpful for bringing things up. And rather than acting out on it by getting angry or having a beer, I would stand there and I had a very good teacher that was like a father figure. And that's why I think I was so attracted to him. And when I met him in Sydney, I followed him here immediately. I was training with him 6 hours a day for 9 years before he passed away.
CST?
Yeah, Chu Shong Tin. Yeah. So he was a first student of Yip Man. Yip Man is Bruce Lee's teacher.
Yeah.
So actually he was Bruce Lee's senior. So he would tell the stories about Bruce Lee was a kid, when he used to come. But he was, for 63 years, it was like, that was his life, and for some reason he took a liking to me. Like when this thing happened, when my brother told me about what happened with my sister, I got my girlfriend at the time to call him while I was at the airport and just tell him. I don't know why, but I'm like, can you please, because he couldn't speak a word of English. So my honky ex-girlfriend got her to call him. I don't know why, but I wanted him to know, because he was like my support system. He was my father figure. So then when I came back after the funeral, and the funeral was heavy, man, because it was like,
I was going to ask you, how old were you?
I was 23 at the time.
And how was your relationship with your sister after you?
Very, very good, man. Very good. She's poor thing. She was her and my mum were best friends. And she would always say stuff. Because she was old enough to know what my mum's going through, what my dad's putting her through, and she would say stuff like, "Don't worry, I'm gonna work hard. I'm gonna buy a house, and I'm gonna, take you with me no matter what happens." But she was just like my mum. Her biggest fear was being lonely. So I remember she would call me all the time, every couple of days, and like, "Hey, when are you coming back home? And when you get married, are you gonna still be like, can I still call you?" And so now to this day, and my mum is 100% lonely. My brother's there. We've got no family there. She's got friends and stuff, and that's my mum's fear. My mum is like, yeah, I can go. I can talk an hour about this sort of side of things, like the hecticness of, she was in denial. Obviously, when I got to Oz, my mum, we had to drug her, so we had to give her sleeping pills and stuff, because if she was awake, she's just going nuts. So we're like, yeah, drink this water, and then she would sleep, because she wasn't eating anything. But when she would come to, she goes, I need to see her. Show me her body. I'm so close and connected with her that if I tell her to wake up, she's going to wake up. So she was just in denial. But afterwards, she was like, one of the biggest things was like, for the funeral, we don't have any family. Your sister hated and was fearful of being alone. So I want to give a big funeral, but we have no one. And luckily, again, my Wing Chun at the time, we ended up having, it was amazing, her school friends and my Wing Chun people, we had something like 200 people show up to the funeral. And that got me so good. Everyone was just standing there. Me and my brother had to hold her body. And it was a Muslim, my mum's Muslim, it was a Muslim sort of thing, where her body is wrapped up in cloth. So the grave is just there and there's no coffin. So we had to carry her body. We went in the bed, they passed the body, we had to place her body down, we put her toys and stuff and put the dirt on and then came out. When I jumped out of the grave, I sort of looked around and I sort of collapsed. And one of my mum's friends came up, this man who said, your mum, get up if your mum sees you like this. And that was the thing. See, talking about suppression, I couldn't show, I chose not to show any negative. I went back home with a smile when I saw my brother and my mum. I couldn't. On the plane back, man, I was listening to Bob Marley's, don't worry about a thing. Every little thing's going to be all right. I swear, man, on repeat, and it's a 9-hour flight. Only when I go to the toilet. And that was my thing of, okay, because I had to prep myself for what's about to come. They went and saw the dead bodies. They but I didn't. So for me, I've got to be that pillar of support, And I remember the first time I saw her body was in a mosque. The first time I saw her body, I saw this beautiful thing. And she was a lot bigger because 13, they grow fast. It was a lot bigger than I hadn't seen her for a year. And I quickly had to go out and sort of hold my tears and went out to cry. And my friend came and said, be strong for your mum, be strong for your mum, So I never really...
Would you say that's like the biggest myth in life, right?
Yeah.
Man can't be vulnerable.
Yeah,
can't share our feelings.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we all have the same struggles. Just
all
different
of us.
timing in life.
Yes.
Right? We all lose our loved ones. We all go through some traumas.
Yeah.
And we need our support system, right, to sort of elevate, to uplift us from time to time.
Absolutely.
And if you don't voice out, you can never build the support system for yourself.
Absolutely. If you don't voice out, and this is the thing, this is one thing that was, what you just said. So suffering, let's call it suffering, loss, or whatever it is, pain, suffering is a reality. No human being is protected by it. Money doesn't fix it. Even having love, whatever, it's going to happen, right? And that's fine. What it showed me is that we are all well equipped to deal with it. It's a wave that we can ride. And yes, we're going to fall off the board.
It's part of nature.
Yes, it's part of what it is. I through this fear. So you're asking about how did I overcome the fear or how did I deal with it? This fear was always, expression of anger or hold it in or do whatever. But it's actually the being okay and sharing my story and meeting people like yourself and meeting so many, and you can't compare my past to your past, even though it is war and murder and all of this, but still everyone has their own pain, right? But it's about when I talk about it and I notice how every single human being has the vulnerability, and everyone tears up when I say my story because they can relate because of empathy and compassion, right? So now I'm like, wow, we're all in the same boat, but we wear masks. We wear good masks of tough guy or whatever, So, all right, the acceptance of there is suffering and to go, all right, it's whether I like it or resist it or not, it's going to be there. What can I do? What's next?
What meaning do I give to?
Exactly. And this is where, again, the practice of Wing Chun really helped me because being in the present moment, at least I could step back a little bit from the emotions of things and go, wow, that's a weird, thing to come. I'll be training in the training hall in front of mirrors, very quiet. Someone would cough behind me and I'd have anger towards them. I'm like, I'm trying to focus. Why are they coughing? I'd be like, hold on, what's going on? And because it wasn't on the street, I couldn't, or it wasn't my son or someone that I could shout at and stand over. I had to deal with, wow, what's happening in here? And, so there was that was really helpful. There was the sharing once I started talking about it and going, wow, I actually feel empowered by sharing the vulnerability side of things and saying that I'm still in pain. It's not, that's why when you ask, when did you overcome the fear? I'm like, it's a second to second, minute to minute, day to day battle is probably not the best word, but it's a ride, right?
It comes and goes, right?
It comes and goes. But how we ride it and what meaning, like you said, we give to it and what we learn from it and how then can we put our arms around someone's shoulder, figuratively speaking or actually speaking, that needs that help. To be that, and because we come like, oh no, it's okay, there, everything will work out. It doesn't come from that. It comes from the experiential understanding of having gone through pain, that we can be a sort of we can bring that kind of presence or energy to someone else and people feel like they're being listened to or they're understood. Even if you don't say anything, your presence is going to be, and that's what I feel. That's why I love this job, because with kids, with adults, It's amazing how many people randomly, the mums of the kids, and start randomly, hey, your name, hi, what's your name? We meet within 5 minutes, they're talking about their marriage issues or the problem in their life. I'm like, wow, so I guess they sense that because I'm like, they see how I talk to the kids, how vulnerable I am, and I'm saying, okay, how do we deal with our emotions? I can't really do it well myself, but let's discuss what it is. What is
solve the problem together.
Let's solve the problem together. So exactly what you said. It's talking about it, and not then to then. So one thing I'd like to add in my experience is not to have a victim sort of mindset of, because that then we can start to go into depression. Okay, we accept it, but what are we going to do about it? How are we going to transmute that energy? What are we going to do with that energy? And this is why I think the circle that you have around you, if you don't have a positive circle these days, this day and age, there's podcasts like this that you can listen to. You can go, okay, for me, people like David Goggins, Jocko Willing, these guys that are like the Navy SEALs guys, these tough guys that are always talking about their vulnerability, I can really connect with that. So if I don't have a circle here, which I'm thankfully I do, if I didn't, there's enough books and there's enough things out there to constantly put your mind in that, constantly be receiving that good energy and going, all right, how can discipline, I have discipline. I'm feeling like this. All right, how am I going to take responsibility and use my discipline to transmute this? Okay, go for a walk, do this, take that first step, and be okay to take wins, incremental wins.
Yep.
Yeah. For some people, it's hard to get out of bed. For me, it was hard. For my mum, it was hard to get out of bed. She couldn't even eat. I'm like, okay, just eat this much food, and then more.
Do things that work for you. Build your own system instead of trying to work on someone else's system.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Find your path. Take inspiration from others, possibly, but find your path. We only have one life, man.
Yeah.
We only have one life.
Only have one life. That's really well said. You had a very different life, right? And now, I guess if you look back, you're now a Wing Chun master. We can talk about the Wing Chun. And by the way, the second part of the video, I'm going to get Nima to show us some Wing Chun moves, and then we can learn from that.
Sure.
But you had a very different life back then. Did you always believe in positivity? You mentioned about building up your own circle, right? And I guess you stumbled upon Wing Chun by chance or by luck, right? It's easy to look back and say, oh yeah, I now redefine my relationship with fear and with what happened to my sister, my father, and the street fights and all that, right? But when you were in that process, or when you were in the beginning of that process, what did that look like?
In terms of positivity and negativity.
Yeah, how does someone get to where you are today, right? To have that type of mindset.
I think for me, I as I said, my brother lost himself in books, in studying. For me, I lost myself in working hard, whatever it is, with whatever it was. At that time, it was, okay, the street stuff. Or once I found Wing Chun, it was something that I could. It was in some ways running away from the emotions in some ways.
But in a positive way.
But it was towards a positive thing. See, picking up a beer or turning to drugs or doing, having a group of, the fights and stuff like that. That's negative. But at least this was a positive outlet. So it was okay. It was good. And so for me, it was just hard work, just the discipline of, all right, keep myself. So have a purpose. I found a purpose. I had goals. First of all, there was negative goals and positive goals, and then the goal turned into purpose. So how did it turn into purpose? Because once I started teaching, I started to realize that I can actually help alleviate some pain, even if it's for a small period of time, because I'm taking the person's attention away from their, whatever it is, their stress from work or their marriage related issues or whatever it is. Momentarily, I can have them present in their body in front of me, and we can share that moment together, right? And that's mutually beneficial for me and the students. So once I started experiencing that from a young age, because I've been teaching this for over 20 years, right? Yeah. So once I started to experience that, then just goals became a purpose, and then it was like, they say, you sort of, there isn't a reason for you to get out of bed. It really became like that.
Yeah. How long did it take you to find your purpose?
I'd say the biggest, I'd say when I met my master. You see, I had before that my idea of a man, because again, I couldn't look at my dad as a man, especially in my teenager, because of what I could. Maybe as a kid, I did, and that's mixed emotions because as a son, you do look up to your father,
And
right?
to be honest, when you were telling me about the background of your father, it was hard for me to believe that someone that is educated, that got an opportunity to go to work overseas, behave like that in the family.
And he's wrote a thesis on philosophy. I've tried to I've tried to Google it and try to find out. I know which universities I would be very interested now as an adult to read his philosophy, his idea on philosophy. To get some insight into those last years before he did what he did, what he did put on paper.
I
But
came across a quote last week, and it's a short one, and basically says that there's one person that is worse than a liar, and that person is a hypocrite.
mm, mm.
Do you think your dad was a hypocrite?
Well, his actions speak. I don't know what he wrote in his philosophy, but his yes. So I can't say if he's a hypocrite or not because I haven't read his work, right? But it's very interesting, man. It's very interesting because honestly, I'm not trying to sit here and sound humble or sound like whatever, forgiving or whatever. I honestly feel this. I actually feel sorry for him because he had nothing, he had no one, and the only thing he loved was my sister. But I keep, and I know it's not helpful, so but I do entertain the thought regularly, especially when I'm about to talk about it or it comes up. In the last few months, in the last weeks, in the last days, because he had to get a ladder, he had to get a rope, right? So it was premeditated. So what is going through your head? What kind of darkness are you in? People jump off buildings, right? But for him to okay, my daughter's here, the only thing I love. So imagine the pain you must be in. And my brother, when he had to identify the bodies. So when he went to the morgue, he said he came back and he was passing out and he was obviously panicking, freaking out. And when he came back, and I was like, and everyone was freaking out because it was like, is he dead? Is he alive? Because it was just no energy. And I whispered in his eye, I go, man, you're right. You want me to drug your drink? Because we were drugging my mum's drink, right? And when I said that, he sort of laughed and came to, and then he said, the old man had that same look. He used to have these creases on his thing. He said he had that same look with his chest cut open. He had that same look on the face. So that's how he went with the rope around his neck. Whereas my sister, almost it looked like she's smiling, right? So what must have he been going through? The most difficult. I mean, this is pointless to think about, but the hardest thought for me that I need to let go of as I keep evolving is what was my sister going through in the last seconds of her life.
How did you grieve? What was the healing process?
So I sort of collapsed. I was in Prince Edward just after training. So the exact place, it was a little sitting area. I collapsed. I was on the floor squatting and talked to my brother, his girlfriend, and my mom. And I was just crying out loud. It would have looked pretty crazy if I just faced the wall and I was just crying out loud. Then I was crying. I was on the next flight the next day, but I was pretty much crying from when I heard the news until I got on the plane or until I went to the airport. Then I was like, okay, listen to Bob Marley, to Positive. Time to man up. Time to be that support pillar for my family.
So you're quite in public. People could see you.
Yeah.
Did anyone come over to give you a pat on the shoulder?
No. And my ex-girlfriend at the time, bless her, it was just, we were young and it didn't work out. And luckily it didn't because I met my lovely wife now. We have our kids and I couldn't be happy. I got the best family for me. But we were just about to break up. Or she was just about to break up with me. And then when this happened, so there wasn't much there from her as well. Because there was no closeness. And I remember she said, don't worry, I'll go through it with you and whatever. And she actually broke up with me while I was in Australia in that couple of weeks. I came back, packed my stuff.
What a terrible time
to go through all that.
A relationship, right?
But when I came back, my teacher had told the senior students in there, and it was such a good feeling. I came back. No one said anything. A couple of them that could speak English said something. He didn't say anything. His wife didn't say anything. His kids didn't say anything. But I just felt like this, the energy in that room. It was a small room, smaller than this. We were training in his living room at the time. It was his house, right? So it was a very intimate sort of little group. And then a couple of them came, they said, we heard what happened. And it was just like, he gave me a lot more attention with training. And he was like, yeah, that's it. Good. And it was like everyone went like that to me. So my grieving process was being in that training room. It was my grieving. It was being in that group, being part of that group, having him as a father figure, having him guiding me and having and my tool was the Kung Fu. My tool was standing there and it's not about punching. It's not about kicking. It's about, okay, you stand there and try to, because mind and body is one thing, right? Mind, body, emotions, we're one system. They're not separate things. So as I'm standing there and trying to peel away layers of tension, is the tension physical? Is it mental or is it emotional? It doesn't matter. But when you let go, you have to let go. You have to release and bring more balance to the whole system, right? As a whole. Yeah. So that was definitely my tool for grieving. The group that I had, the support group, and the tool that I had,
So when you were with your master and the group, did you sort of distract yourself just with the Kung Fu activities, or were things said to you? What did your master say to you?
He didn't bring this up at all. It was mainly the practice itself, and the feeling I had. People putting their hands on my shoulder and some of them couldn't speak English. But when they saw me, they just came and, and in the old, something like these guys are 50, 60 years old, right? It's not common in the Hong Kong culture for them to give a hug, right? But I felt that, they were just the way they would touch. I'm like, they're like, okay, we got
your back.
Yeah, we got your back. It was sort of like that, and then look, that was really, really good for me to be coherent, to not go down the wrong path, to continue driving, to continue, then a lot of stuff, then life happens, right? So that was still, it's not like, that's what when you said, again, to bring it back up again, you said, how did you overcome fear? I haven't overcome fear. It is a daily thing that I'm going through, and it comes out sometimes. So when we first opened the business in 2008, when we first opened the business, we had zero money. We didn't have an actual location. We were teaching on beaches in, near the Central Ferry Pier, where it's got a bit of cover. So on public places.
You were frugal.
Yeah. And we were hustling, man. I learned Photoshop from scratch. Okay, how do I design a flyer? Design flyers, and we're literally on the street going, hey, are you a tourist or a local? People stop and say, a local. Like, well, we're Wing Chun guys. And that's how we built up a school, and slowly. So there was times where literally I would have a can of tuna and white rice. That's all I could afford. That was my nutrition, right? Because I still had to pay my master for training, and we had to just live because we quit our jobs of teaching English to do that, right? So, but then my business partner, so we built it up, we got this location, and then my business partner, his wife at the time, they not only emptied their bank account, but they basically got money from shareholders and sold like ridiculous 500 pack private lessons, and the students trusted in us, the teachers, so they gave the money. Then they disappeared to Europe. So I was stuck with it. So then that, and my son was 6 months old. My wife's business wasn't going well. When they say it rains, it pours. I was but I went through it, and then 6 months after that, I had my first experience of a panic attack. I never had a panic attack before. When I heard I don't know what, I was there in a corporate event, and I'm like, okay, I've got to stand up and talk about Wing Chun.
Yeah.
I can do it 5 hours. I don't have to prepare anything.
Yeah, just like this.
Just like this, exactly. It's just talking for me and a demonstration. And I got up, and I remember there was a projector behind me, so the light was in my eyes, and I was like, okay, so Wing Chun. And then suddenly there was a panic attack, but I didn't know what it was at the time. My vision started to black out. My heart's going like this, and I was nearly black, but apparently I was talking heaps fast, and I was like, what's going on? Have I eaten enough? And I was thinking as I was speaking, and I said, actually, someone come out and I'll show you. And because to demonstrate, I have to be embodied. I become present. Therefore, that was the panic attack stopped, and everything was normal. Afterwards, I told the people, this happened. I wonder what it was. They're like, interesting. But then the fear of what was that? What's it going to start to happen? And then I started
again.
So then public speaking was one of my, it will happen in that. And I go around the world, do seminars for Wing Chun, right?
Yeah.
So I could either go, okay, I'm not going to do that because I can. I can say no. But I'm like, my attitude of my past and the way I am is like, no. I've got to face that fear. I'm going to do more seminars.
Take it head on.
I've got to take it head on. And it was tough, man, because it got so bad to a stage. It was a period of 3 or 4 months that my son, which was like 1 or 2 at a time, was the only person, even my wife, I would look at it, and it's hard for me to explain. If anyone's ever had panic attack or anxiety, high-level anxiety, they'll know what I mean. But it's like your world, what you feel your reality is, it starts to shift. So I'll look at my wife's face, let's say at dinner, and it's my wife, person I love, my best friend, and her face just looks weird, and the lighting looks weird, and then that could be the trigger to, oh, shit, it's happening again. The heart starts pumping, and then it becomes a cycle, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I went to a psychotherapist. I had 8 sessions, and she was the one when I told my story. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm just, I'm working 7 days a week, and I've got my wife was pregnant. I've got a son, and she goes, well, that's probably what it is. And I go, yeah, probably. You probably don't need to come
There's
to
too
you.
much going on in your life.
Yeah. And then she goes, well, tell me a little bit about your past. I'm like, yeah, well, my dad killed my sister. And she goes, what? Hold on, what? And then she started writing out. And then she basically goes, look, I think you've been bypassing. It's great, the Wing Chun, the meditation and all that. That's great. But I think it's time now. That little Nima that was so fearful, I think it's time for you to put your arms around that part of you rather than suppressing it down and go, all right, mate, what do you got to tell me? What have you got to say? So actually don't run away from it. Feel it.
Yeah.
Feel it right here, right now. And then that's when I started to read a lot of books about Western, psychology, physiotherapy, not physiotherapy, psychotherapy.
Yeah.
And then from there, I'm like, it's also that basing it. It makes sense.
Yeah.
So then the East practice, the Buddhism, the Wing Chun, all of that.
Yeah.
Plus the West. And then I'm like, then I can put into words why I'm feeling like this and what, and it's honestly sitting here now. Of course, I can say it now with healthy family and all that. Yeah. It's a blessing, man. It's a blessing that to have gone through that to have that experiential understanding and not just read it from a book, to actually go through the darkness and come to the light. And sometimes still the darkness is there, but at least now I've got a buffer around the darkness because I'm like, that's not me. It's not going to have full control because I have tools to deal with it, to manage it.
Yeah. And it's amazing how you interpret your past in a way that basically made you a better person.
Yeah.
And sort of continue that path and leave a better legacy for your children.
Yeah.
I want to ask about your family and your kids. I guess you touched on it earlier on. I guess you had some influences from your father. You saw some not so favorable things when you were young, right? How did those experiences manifest in the way that you deal with relationships? How do you look at love? How do you parent your 2 children?
This is you would probably agree with me being a parent. Nothing can prepare you for parenting. No book, no nothing, right?
100%.
Yeah, it's the hardest thing in life because I love them unconditionally, I can say, of course, unconditionally. But then there are conditions which are put through, do this, and they don't do this. And let's say my son, especially my son, I expect him to do something, act in a certain way, and he doesn't. So then what do? I go to my default, which at the time when he was younger, before I started to, and it's still a work in progress, right? It always will be. But before I started to look into the psychology, psychotherapy, and understand what's going on, my default was, it's very easy. He's only 3. I can say, hey, stop,
Yeah, that's what I deal with it.
Yeah, I never hit him, never, ever, and I never will. But that's how I deal with it. It's such a great, quick fix, and then he stops, right? But then as he gets older, I'm like, hold on, the same patterns. This is just suppression.
Yeah.
And as he's going to get older, he's going to, so through all of that experience, what I went through, how my dad was, and now being on the other end of it, and with the understanding that I have, it's a perfect playing ground for me to plant the type of seeds that I want, rather than the mindless seeds of just quick fix anger, or which is pushing them away. And now my son's 9 years old, and I can see it. If I ever beast turn in an unfair way, I can sense that from him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, and my dream, my hope, for me, when I see a lot, I have a lot of students, and I see that real close best friend type relationship between a 16-year-old boy and his father, and the both of them are students. We've got a few of them, and when I see that, I always tell the dad, I'm like, man, for me, this is success. Well done. Like, parenting's not an easy thing, but to have that real love,
That bond,
yeah,
that's everything.
and for me, not having that,
shameful.
yeah, not shameful, not, and just that's just it. That's their world, and for me, not having that, from my dad, that's what I want with my kids. So it's like now, so how do I parent? One thing I do, and I do have, as I said, it's a work in progress, day by day. But if I do do something that's unfair and I blow up, I make sure immediately after. I'm like, okay, my wife maybe snaps out of it, or vice versa. I take him to the room, give him a hug. No matter, I'm sorry I did that. No matter what, know that daddy loves you. And I give him, when they're young, when they're 3, 4 years old. What if you, hit someone? Will daddy love you? And then they say, no. No, I will. That's not the right thing to do. But I still love you. So I make very bad scenarios for and my son will keep saying, I say, what if you do this? And then for him, you could see, surely you'll start loving me then. No, you won't love me. I said, even then I will love you. So I'm trying to drill that at least.
Because home is always home.
Because home is always home. And I think, as I said in the beginning of this chat, I feel, before I met my teacher, what got me through and what made me in situations where I could really, really have hurt someone. Someone's on the ground and it's a gang fight, and it's I never ever did. I would pretend because I was with the group and I didn't want anyone to see it. But I never did. I never had that in me to really hurt someone physically, and I put that down to my mum's love. See, if I didn't experience my mum's love, and my mum, that kindness, and it was just, even if she wasn't doing what my dad was doing in terms of violence, my mum did beat me as well for not studying, but it was just I guess a part of the culture in Iran as well. But the fact that I felt the love, I think that was my saving grace. That was my experience in seeing, let's call it, the light compared to the dark, right? So I feel for my dad. Maybe he didn't have that from his mum, and he was trying to figure out his way, and he got a family, and but he just couldn't get out of it. He just didn't have the support system, didn't have, so I want to be that. I want my kids to say this in 40 years when they're in a situation where they could, do someone over, or be, cheat or steal or whatever, or do something really bad. I want them to say, no, I was brought up better than this. Not just because of what
their conscious choice.
Yes, yeah, because they've felt goodness from us, which is who they look up to.
So, I like your story. Like, you've been hurt multiple times in life, and you decided to choose a better way. Chose the higher.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You didn't leave that. You didn't let that darkness leave within you. You basically redefined your relationship with that darkness.
Yeah.
And you became that bigger person.
Yeah.
Right.
Love is the answer, man. Love is the way out. Like, it really is. I mean, it's you hear it, you read about it, but it really is. Once you experience it, it really is.
Your wife. I want to talk about your wife. How did you guys meet?
My wife. So we were.
Let's talk about couple love. How do you guys deal with conflicts?
It was love at first sight for her. For now, we were in Hong Kong. We were living in a service apartment. I was with a fellow Wing Chun guy, and she was with her friends. I was in a swimming pool. I had a cold I had a flu or something, and I'm like, okay. It was fate because my friends, all of them, had gone to Discovery Bay that day to train, and I never miss out on training. But I'm like, I'm not feeling it. I want to go in the sun, get some vitamin D. So I was there in the sun. She was there. She saw me. She gave me a smile. I felt something. Then when they left, I ran after them. It was like in the movies where the elevator's closing, and I put my hand there. The elevator opens up, and I was like, "Hey, can I have your number?"
How old were you?
This was 2009, so I was 25. She was 22. Then from there, and I was her only foreign non-Chinese boyfriend or person she'd ever been with. So there was massive cultural differences, but I don't know. She's just a lovely. She's such a family oriented person, such a loyal person, you know. And for me, now hearing my story, for me, loyalty is
How long did it take you to sort of lay that out with her, like your story?
To tell her my story.
Yeah.
Months. Yeah, it took a few months. It's not exactly an icebreaker in the conversation, right? To say,
Yeah, and did you break it down into bite size, or you just kind of like in the setting, like over an hour, 2 hours, you just told her everything?
no, bite size.
Yeah.
Bite size, yeah. So now for her to go back and like her and my mum are so close, and you know, to hear stuff, you know, from my mum's side and from my brother and from my friends sometimes, she's mapping things together, you know, and it's just gonna make us closer and closer the more she knows about me. But our relationship is great. It's really good. I'm so blessed to have her.
How long have you guys been married?
We've been married. We just had our 10-year anniversary in March. Cheers.
It's been a milestone.
Yeah, that's a milestone. But of course we have our
Ups and downs.
of course. But now we're trying to, because she's got a temper and a half as well, same as me. So we're learning. You know, we're maturing together. So we're learning. You know, when we're going at it, one of us step away until it's calmed down. Then we can talk about it. So I'm learning how to deal with her when she's fired up, and vice versa. If I fire up at the kids, she calls my names. I Nima, enough.
Yeah.
And then she snaps me out of it, and vice versa.
Can
You
you
know.
give us a situation,
Um.
some strategies that you guys use?
So, for as parents or with each other?
Well, I guess both. When you were parenting kids, and you mentioned that there was a heated moment, that should call your name.
Yeah. So, I mean, it happens. It happens regularly where my son's doing something, or my daughter, but they could be fighting. They could be doing something. They could be saying, my son could be saying something that's inappropriate to my daughter, you know. And I'm like, okay, I mean, that's enough. And he just keeps at it. That's enough, buddy. That's enough. Or don't do this. And then my son's, he loves to push boundaries.
Yeah, and
It's
then
like,
keep doing it, right?
yeah, like he's moving the cup, right? And I'm like, buddy, that's gonna fall off the table, and then it's gonna break, and it's, you know. And then he's just like, just a little bit more, you know. And he's pushing my buttons because I never hit him, and I never, you know. He of course, as kids, they want to test boundaries. That's part of understanding, and you know.
Pet peeves.
Yeah. So then he does a, oh, stop it, buddy. And then okay, then he stops. But then I keep going. How many times? I said it 5 times, and then what? But why? What are you trying to achieve? Like, what do you want it to break? And so then I just go on a tangent. And then my wife hears that she could be working. She works from home. She could be working, and then she's listening. She hears, and then from there she goes, Nima, and then sometimes I keep going. Nima, enough. And if I keep going, she'll come out and she'll be like, oh, mate, have you done your homework? And then she sort of comes in, and she doesn't try to pull me away from the situation, but she diverts it.
Yeah.
Have you done a homework, buddy? Or did you?
Distracted.
Yeah, she distracts him, and
Yeah.
that makes me skip a beat in my sort of tangent, you know.
Get this short mental break, right?
Yes, yeah, and that's all that's needed for me. And the good thing for me is my things don't last for that long. So her temper sometimes lasts for that long, especially if it's that time of the month. So it could go on for hours, right? Whereas for me, it's like a burst, and then I'm like, oh, that was sorry, buddy, and then, you know, so
you own up to it, right?
Yeah, I own
try
up
to play the victim role, own up to it. And one of the things that I always say to my son is, I'm really sorry. I let my emotions get the better of me.
Yeah.
And I'll try not to do it again.
Yeah.
You call me out.
Yeah.
I should enable him. I give him permission to call me out. If I raise my voice, if I scream at him. And I think that's the ugly side of being a parent, right? Nobody is perfect. Every day is a new day, and every day is an opportunity to become better than the parent that you were yesterday.
Yeah.
And you don't need to be 100%, right? I mean, you got to give permission to,
to mess up.
Right? And that's just life, but own up to it. And I think the value that we're trying to teach our kids is more important than just a one-off thing. Right?
Yeah. And to lead by example, because they watch what we do. They watch how I speak to their mum. Rather than, I could say, treat a girl like, homie, don't never ever raise a hand on a girl, and don't push your sister. Don't, you know. But if I was pushing her mum, how can, you know? So so that's what I noticed more and more and more. And you know, you said being a hypocrite's worse than a liar. I think, and that's the thing, to catch myself more and more of, hey, don't shout at your sister. Hold on, I was just shouting at him about not shouting. Yeah, you know. So and what, like you said, to own up to it right there and there.
Yeah,
that's a gift, because we do mess up, and I do have a lot of self-condemnation.
Yeah,
you know,
your default does come out because you saw it in your childhood.
Yeah.
As much as you have self-control, self-awareness, Like there will be moments where you just couldn't control yourself.
Autopilot, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, and that's why coming back to the present moment and all these kind of practices, and it's doing it moment to moment, day by day. That's where, this is. I mean, again, we could go for hours and hours now. The effects of devices and all of this kind of stuff, but anything that brings us into the present moment is a gift,
and a positive intention.
A positive intention,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
And talking about parenting, there's a big difference between being authoritative and being firm.
Yeah.
And one can use threats, suppression, to discipline their children, right? But these tactics only work in the short term.
Exactly.
Right. Doesn't help them develop a growth mindset.
Yeah.
Doesn't teach them about being hardworking.
Yeah.
To have strong discipline.
Yeah, it was just going to push them away from us anyway. And teaching them that's how you got to deal with your boss, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever afterwards as you grow up. And and that's the thing. The cycle continues.
Yeah.
So I think really literally is the most important job in life, being a parent, because what are we leaving behind? They talk about legacy. Yes, I want to leave a good legacy. I want to send ripples of goodness, with that. Now I've got an online school, which came at the right time. That's what actually saved the business during COVID. So now there's thousands of people learning this practice. It's helping them. That's fantastic. But what ripple am I going to be sending? What legacy am I going to be sending? For me, it's my kids, because that's what they're going to pass on to their kids. Like my dad to me, his dad to him. So that, I think, is the biggest responsibility that we have as parents. Otherwise, don't bring lives into the world. If you're not going to take responsibility, if you're not going to really, for me, that's the biggest responsibility.
100%, man. 100%. And would you say that when it comes to Wing Chun, the mindset, the meditation is just as important as the technical?
Yeah, I would say it's more important. I always say this phrase, and that is the self-defense, power, combative side of Wing Chun, of this type of Wing Chun, which is unique, is only a branch on the tree of benefits. Really is just a branch, that side of it, because that's where, especially in Hong Kong, it's a safe place. When I was a bouncer before, of course, for my job, I have to defend myself or defend other people, but how often, in here do I have to fight? Or it's not it's the tools that it gives me to deal with the day-to-day ups and downs. It's my go-to. It's my reset button of presence again. Okay, deal with whatever it is, good and bad, from the present. Keep myself grounded, etc. So I would say it's much more important than the technical aspect.
I'll pick up a quote. Before we wrap up the episode, I'm just going to read this out to the audience because I really love what you share. I don't know whether you still remember this. But basically, in an article, you said, "I will worry less about the problems of life. Life is that way. There are ups and downs, just like a wave in the ocean. It flows, comes and goes. The sun always comes up in the morning, and no matter how bad things may seem, tomorrow is always another day, and things will change. So I would worry and pull my hair out a lot less over things that I had little control over. I would accept things more, and as the Beatles said, let it be." You remember you wrote that?
Yeah. That sounds like my words. Yeah, exactly, man. Let it be. Acceptance, real acceptance. I think that's a very powerful thing. Acceptance is a very powerful thing. Acceptance doesn't mean just let it be and don't do anything. So if you're fall in water and say, just let it be and drown, no, you're going to swim. But let it be in terms of that. And this is another thing that I've learned really from Wing Chun is you don't resist what you can't control. There is always something you can do. What happened with my sister, with my family situation, what I could do is not go to drugs or go to the bad side. What I could do is use that, ball that up and transmute it and change it for something better. So there's always something you can do no matter the situation.
Yeah. There's always something positive in any situation, like
exactly.
On closing, two last things I want to ask you. What's the one question you want to ask the next guest? And what's the single most important life lesson you think anyone should know?
Okay. What's the next thing I want to ask your next guest?
Yes.
Okay. I would say, what do they think is, given the situation, given the scenario that we're in this world, post-COVID, the kids' high suicide, anxiety, depression rate, social media related, etc. What do they think is the step, or what path as a species should we take? What should we focus on more? What should be focused more on in schools, in education, at home? And if we can't change what's happening at schools and all of that, what can we do as parents at home? How should we educate our kids? What are the priorities? Things like that. I think that's a very interesting thing for us all to ponder.
Yeah.
And what was the second question?
So what's the most important life lesson you've learned?
For me, and it continues to be, different levels of acceptance. That is my day-to-day saving grace. As I said, self-condemnation is my default. You can always, and I guess that maybe came from psychotherapist thought that it came from my dad, that vigor of you're not good enough, you can always do better, right? So I have that inner voice, and that has driven me to always do more. No, not good enough. I feel sick. Doesn't matter. Go push through it. And that's good. You can achieve stuff with it, but that's gonna take my legs out. Eventually something is going to give. I'm going to give myself an illness or something like that. So not to have self-condemnation.
Anxiety attack. Like
Anxiety attack. Yeah. So that was a gift in itself. It was time to address it and go, hey, like the map that you've had, the map that you've used, the tools that you use to navigate through life, it does not work anymore.
Yeah.
Time to revisit it.
Yeah.
Right. And once through revisiting it, I had to go to deeper and deeper levels, and I continue to go to deeper levels of acceptance and put my own arm around that side of me, that vulnerable side, and go, there, it's all right, man. I'm here for you. What do you want to say? It's all good. You don't have to. I won't push it away and say, stay quiet, because that's weakness. That's not weakness. That's power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And vulnerability is a strength.
Vulnerability is power, for sure.
Yeah. Dude, Nima, thank you so much for sharing all your stories.
Cheers.
It was such a wonderful conversation, and I love it. And I think it's time for us to move on to part 2.
Sounds good.
Show us some moves.
Cheers.
Cheers, buddy.
Thanks,
Good
man.
to have you, man.
Cheers.
Okay. So talk about philosophy a bit. Yeah. Okay. So as I was saying, the fact that the self-defense aspect is a small branch on the tree of the benefits. So what does that mean? So the good thing about Wing Chun is we can tangibly feel and test whether we have infused the body with the mind. That sounds fancy, but what I mean is, for example, something very, very simple. So think about movement. So let's say the arm's going forward, back, sideways, could be the leg, could be a step, whatever. But we'll pick something simple like the arm going forward, right? As you're standing, however you want to stand however you want to stand, very stable, however you want to stand, right? Now, if you wanted to move your arm forward, what I'm going to do, of course, I could put a pad in front of you and I'll say punch, and anyone coordinated could throw a good enough punch, right? But let's say the way sometimes we look at and the way we teach is, if I ask you to, okay, Aaron, move your arm forward, right? So as you slowly move your arm forward, or fast, or whatever you want to do, keep coming forward. So it becomes hard to move. Why? Because muscular tension, acts as a blockage for force, right? And if there's a blockage, then it can't move. Imagine a hose that's blocked. Flow can't go through it, right? So what we do, in a solo practice, we have different empty hand forms. The first one is called Xiu Lim Tao. Yeah, Xiu Lim Tao, translated to little idea or little intention or whatever. It's very interesting because it doesn't suggest any kind of, usually the Kung Fu forms have like dragon, they have fancy names, fighting, powerful related names, whereas this one's talking about the mind or intention. So in Xiu Lim Tao practice, we're standing here, we're not moving our body, we just have this very relaxed triangular stance, the posture is very upright. And let's say, I'll just give you one move. The other hand's holding like this, and then this arm is going out on what we call the center line. So the reason we stand like this and this arm is up is because what we're trying to do, think about a magnifying glass, the way it catches the rays of the sun, and if you want to burn something, puts it into one point, right? The reason we stand like this is so from the knees, from everywhere, from every cell in our body, we are focusing and aiming everything out to one point. So by doing that, we are activating, we're getting a holistic sense of the whole body. And as we're doing that, we're thinking how to stand and move with less and less and less and less effort, and you start to tangibly feel the muscles opening up and relaxing. And as a result, you're going to have power with that. So I'll show you the same thing that we just did. So as you're pushing into me here, you stop me from moving, right? Usually people will have to stand like this so they can push off the ground. But if I just stand normally, sort of casually, as you really stop me from moving, so stand however you want. Yeah, hold strong, yeah. So if I do something like this, you can feel that there's a blockage, right? Now, if I change that to, again, just relax this area and have it, so as you try to stop me from moving again, if I relax the area, really try it, really hold as hard as you want, yeah. So from here, it becomes effortless to move. And that can be through any kind of, if you pull really hard, yeah. Now, instead of this, where you can feel the blockage, what if I stand on one leg, pull hard, I'll stand on one leg, relax, and I can still create pulling force, right? Or if you hold my arm here, so these are not techniques, I'm just showing you ways of movement through relaxation. Okay, hold with two hands, don't let me move anywhere. So don't let me move left, right, so don't let me move this way, good. If I use this, you feel the tension. Now if I go like that, hold very strong, and it becomes quite easy to start moving around, right? So it seems like you don't have a platform to apply force on. So then when we do have, if that is, let's say, if you hold here, if that is a punch, rather than this, having it, so it's just going out like this, or, as you hold strong. So then we have the Wing Chun techniques of covering the center line as we defend and attack simultaneously. So quite effortlessly, we are able to produce force, and then that's the engine, let's say, behind the techniques. There's a lot of, that's a whole other 1 hour podcast of introduction of what are the principles in terms of combative principles of center line and taking the shortest path. It taps into geometry, like using circular structures and circular angles and circular energies, etc. But what it is this tangible thing, like, for example, so we talk about relaxation. Relaxation means different things for different people. Like if someone can go, okay, I can relax my arm if I'm like this, or I'm relaxing when I'm on the couch, right?
Yeah.
But if I say, okay, you hold your hand like this, so this is like a tansa, this is one of the moves. You hold it like this, right? Now feel this area, feel the tendons, the muscles area. If I say, as you're standing, without changing the shape, can you relax? Can you tangibly relax that? By using your mind to feel that area and control the body to relax, or this area, And if the answer is no, that we can't really tap into and relax it, then if you hold it like that, if I apply force onto it, or if you're holding a dumbbell or something, because it's already activated, it's going to activate even more. I.e., if I say, okay, now from this point, if you want to touch your own chest with this hand, if you touch your own chest with this hand, it's going to be hard. It's like doing a dumbbell curl, right? So feel this. If you feel here, from there, if I just think about it, you won't work. Whereas if I go like this, so the joint opens. Now this, if you hold strong, feel again. So this is just one joint, right? Instead of hold stronger, instead of this, if I go to that, so hold strong, it becomes very easy to start moving. So if you do that with every joint, then the power comes. So we're using, that's why when I met my teacher, he was using these kind of demonstrations, effortless power, tangibly felt, not like, hey, this is my chi, and then people jump away. No, it's actual pure biomechanics. He would say the way that a mother lifts up a car when the baby's underneath it, they're tapping to this system. The human body and mind has that potential. It's just through overthinking and through tension, we lose that ability.
And if someone has really bad coordination, can they still do this?
Of course, because this is coordination is then that application afterwards, how to apply it. This is just every human being, as long as you have a nervous system, you're able to, it's your mind, it's your body, it's just about connecting it. This is an ability that everyone has. Someone that's got, maybe that's paralyzed, that's got Parkinson's, that I don't know, and that I don't know. I have no experience with what they can do there. But if you are not anyone that can stand, that can walk, that has a mind, for sure they can do that. And once you do tap into your body in this way, then coordination becomes a lot easier because you are tangibly feeling your body. So you have much better relationship with gravity, i.e. your balance, because you have to be balanced to be able to relax, not just here, but relax all of these areas, right? Move efficiently. You have a better sense of proprioception, which is your body in relation to things around you, because you're present and you're feeling it. And that's the thing, you're present. I can't be thinking about what I'm going to have for lunch later, and at the same time relax to this level. So that's why I said it's a
You
real
gotta put your presence into it.
you have to be here right now in the body, connected to be able to open up.
One last thing before we wrap up, Nima. If someone, let's just say a woman is in a dangerous situation, or a child is being kidnapped in a dangerous situation, is there one self-defense move that you can that they can do?
Yeah, it's hard to say. It depends on the situation. But I tell my wife all the time. First of all, for kids, what we teach for kids, be very loud. You know, try to straight away. First of all, you have to be aware. If you're like this on the phone, someone could just put you in a van. If you're more aware of your surroundings, then you're not an easy victim. That's the first thing, right? That already is the first sort of
consciousness, right?
The consciousness. People go for people that are easily picked. Second thing is for children, what we teach is, okay, when you feel that, when you sense that, don't let someone get this close to you or hold you. So as you step away, so be ready to step away and shout, stay away from me, So use your voice.
Just
to
walk
get
away
attention.
from that situation,
Walk
right?
away as best as you can, but sometimes you can't. You're in an alleyway, it's dark, and So for what I say for my wife, just like element of surprise. So just like, act very scared, but just wait for that moment where you can get close enough to poke in the eyes. Because the groin, yes, but it takes a couple of seconds for the guy to react.
Yeah.
Right? So and for the pain to come in and you fall. So by that time they could already grab you. And even if they're in pain, they're just going to get angry. Whereas the eyes, anybody, if you go like that, they're going to momentarily close their eyes. So if you poke them in the eyes, they're going to go like that.
And you're going to run away.
You have to run away.
You ask for help. Yeah.
You have to run away. Yeah. But it's really hard to say this technique. I think the technique is just go for the eyes, then the groin, and then just get away as fast as...
And it's also about making the right choices, right? And not to engage in that confrontation.
Yeah, if there's a dark alley somewhere, they say don't walk down it, try to and just be clear. Avoidance is the best form of self-defense, I think,
Thank you so much, Nima.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Learned a ton from you.
Yeah, thank you.
And guys,
Thank you
if you guys want to learn Wing Chun in Hong Kong, in Central, where's the address?
The address, we're on Land Street, just off Wyndham Street. And Marks and Spencer's on Queen's Road, we're right behind, so right in the heart of Central. So.
And he's our master, Nima King. Thank you so much for everything today, man.
Thank you.
I'll give you a hug.
Cheers, brother.
Thank you so much for sharing the story.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.